All right, I want to first preface this video by saying this is not meant to be entertaining at all. This is meant more towards documentation. So if you are clicking on this video, watching it, hoping to be entertained, please click off because this video is not for you. But as you can see, OVO hat on, hoodie still on. It's the middle of summer in Virginia and it's burning hot and I'm literally sweating right now. Bag in the back. I literally just got back from my flight. I just flew in from Washington and I'm in Richmond right now, back home in my apartment. And I had this video in mind in my head while I was flying. I was like, bro, I gotta make this video, gotta talk out my thoughts. And that's what I wanna talk about today. I wanna talk about my experience in the past week flying out to see my family. A family visit, which doesn't really seem too significant, but the thing is that I learned a lot about myself during this family visit because I haven't seen this part of my family, my extended family, in it's been almost 7 years. Like I wish I could have captured the picture of their faces once they saw me because I look so much different compared to when they last saw me because I was 13 years old, now I'm 20 years old and I have a full beard, I'm a lot taller, I have a little bit more muscle, which is probably gone after the way that I ate this past week. But yeah, bro, I just got off my flight, just came right to my apartment, didn't unpack nothing, and I wanted to make this video right now, right here for you, because in this past week, I've learned a lot about my roots. I am Jordanian. My family came from Jordan, my dad's side, and I saw my dad's side of the family this past week, and they live up in Ontario, Canada. And I was raised pretty much all my life in America. I've lived in Virginia since I was 4 years old. I was born in South Carolina. So I'm American culturalized, and as you can see, the way I talk, you can hear that. The way I look, the way I act, I'm American. That's how I was raised. That's how I was born. That's just the culture that I adapted towards. And if this past week taught me anything, it's that I've really been culturalized towards American, and I have to remember where my roots came from, being Jordanian. All of my cousins that I met up in Ontario, which I haven't seen for so long, I stick out like a sore thumb compared to them. Not necessarily about the way I look, but more about the way I talk, the way I act, the way I move. It's a lot different than they do because I'm a lot more American than them, and I felt like an imposter. I felt like an outsider in my own family, but of course they made me feel very, very welcome. And that's honestly why I made this video, is because I feel a lot more connected to my ancestors, a lot more connected to my roots after this weekend, because I just learned so much about who I really am. And I had this talk with my cousin. We took a late night walk and he was just telling me like, Faris Habibi, that's how he said. I can't really, my Arabic's really bad. I can understand, but I can't talk it back. But he was saying that, you know, you have to, in this period of your life, you're kind of going through this identity crisis, because it's the way he described it to me. He's a little bit older than me, and I'm 20 years old. And he described it to me, you're going through this identity crisis. Who am I? Am I American? I have family Canadian? I have family in Canada. That's where I just came from. Am I Canadian? Am I Jordanian? Where do I fit? Who am I? I talk American, and it's a lot more different for me, because the way that my cousin described it, he immediately knew. Once he was living in Canada most of his life. Once he flew back to Jordan and he went back, he told me this story. He said, Faris Habibi, I went back to Jordan and I went to this pizza shop. And when I went to the pizza shop, all I said was my first and last name, like picking up my order, right? And immediately someone in the back of the store said his last name. He said the street that he lived on. So the story goes that it's such a home vibe in Jordan, the country where I'm originally from, that someone he doesn't even know recognize his last name just like that, and boom, I know your family. I know probably more about your family than you do. So he was telling me, like, when that happened, Ferris, that is when I knew that I was home. That's when I knew I felt at home there. And he was saying that it's a little bit more challenging for me. And if you're watching this video right now and somehow in the same situation as me, which I think is very likely, that a lot of guys like me who are Arabian, who come from a country like Jordan, or I have some friends here in Yemen who have been culturalized as American and adapted to the American culture to where you feel American. I feel American, I do. But my roots are towards Jordanian, and I had a couple of moments where I just sat and I thought, am I destroying my bloodline if I go fully like towards my American heritage, I guess? And these are all things that I figure out for myself, because one thing about me, and I feel like this is kind of unique, is that I never really paid attention to my family growing up. And I know that's kind of weird to say, and it's kind of disappointing, but I had my immediate family here in the States, and that's about it. Most of my family, they're in Canada. Most of my family are back in Jordan, so I never really visit them often. I just told you my extended family that I just came back from visiting, I haven't seen them in several years. So I didn't really feel too connected to my family. I kind of felt like I was on this one-off path where I was just carving my own way, adapting to my own culture. My dad, he raised me very, very well. He's a very great guy, and I strive and aspire to be just like him, because he came to this country at my age with nothing to his name. He flew out from his hometown in Jordan, and he came to America and he built a fucking name for himself. So, that's one of my deeper drivers towards what I want to do in this life, how I push myself on a daily basis. But I'm just self-reflecting, self-analyzing in the present moment right now during this video, which is what I wanted. And I can't destroy my Jordanian culture. And I'm hoping that this message hits someone watching this video right now, but you can't forget about your culture. Other conversations I had, like even talking with people in America, and they say they're fully American, right? But everyone immigrated from somewhere in their family bloodline, whether it's Ireland, whether it's Germany, whether it's whatever, Italy, France, whatever. But the Americans, the diehard, you know what I'm talking about, the diehard Americans with the fucking F-150 truck or the TRX, driving with what is it called, tailgating, you on the highway, those kind of Americans with the guns in the trunk, those kind of Americans, they seem like America is all they know, but really the home culture in America, what was it? It was Indians. We took their homeland, not we, but Americans, that's how it was cultured, is that Indians were first in America, and then the correct me if I'm wrong, but the Europeans, they came over and they took over and they enslaved the Indians, and that's really what the origin of America is. So these diehard Americans driving their TRX and the F-150s, like, they have other parts of their culture somewhere else, and they kind of just forget about it. And I don't want to be that way, because you think about it, you really analyze in a macro perspective, a generalized view of where immigrants, their bloodline goes. Because if I'm already like going towards the American culture, and I am, my dad is heavy Jordanian, he's very Arab, and if I'm going towards that route, then my kid is going to be very, very American. That's just how it's going to be, just because that's how I was raised, that's how I was culturalized. But I refuse to forget about the people who brought me here today, because something that I used to repeat to myself a lot when I was just going throughout my journey, going throughout the hard shit of my life, going throughout, I dropped out of college, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I hit a Miami trip. I'm just talking about like really hard things that I did in my life, like hitting a Miami trip, driving 15 hours, 950 miles down, knowing nothing at all, going to a motel where there was literally human trafficking posters posted up on my door, where there was bars hanging on the motel receptionist window. And I remind myself that my ancestors sacrificed for me to be here right now. I remind myself that I don't even know who these people are, but they sacrificed so much just for me to be here. I can't forget that. I can't let my children forget about that, because everyone has a deeper reason for why they do stuff. That's my reason. And I don't even know these people. So it would be disrespectful as hell for me just to forget about that side of my roots. That's who I am. And when my cousin was telling me about this identity crisis that he went through, I feel the same way, because the journey that I'm going through right now is knowing thyself, knowing myself to the best of my ability, because that's ultimately what personal development is. It's knowing yourself. How could I be on this journey to know myself if I ignore my Jordanian culture? It just doesn't happen. Man, I literally just got back, and I feel like just more thoughts are gonna flow and flow as I take more in time just to reflect on how that week went. One thing that I will say, and this is, think about like the hardest things that you do in your life, right? For me, an uncomfortable experience was the college dorm room, my first year of college. Being in that dorm room, had a roommate, had a very shitty building that I was in, didn't really love my environment. That was a very hard period of my life, and I feel like I'm very fortunate to say that that was one of the worst things that I experienced. But you don't know what's the hard parts in your life until you make it out of that period. Because I reflect on that time when I was in my dorm, and I realized that was a pretty difficult period. I asked myself, could I mentally do it again? And I would struggle. It was a hard part of my life because I was very, very uncomfortable every single day. Every time I woke up, every time I went to sleep, every time I, went back to my room just to do fucking normal shit like my homework or do laundry or anything. It was uncomfortable for me. I didn't like it. That wasn't a position I wanted to be in. And of course, when you're in those positions, it drives you to be out of that scenario, right? You want to do everything you can to just get out of there. That's ultimately what I did. I dropped out of college because I hated my environment there. I knew I could not become the man that I desired to be in that college environment that I was in. And you don't know the hard times in your life until you get out. So that's what I'm saying. The point is that as I'm going throughout my week and self-reflecting back on the time that I spent with my family last week, I will start to have new epiphanies, start to have new realizations, new thoughts about who I really am. And that's ultimately what the journey of personal development is. It is not the destination where you're trying to get to, but it's the journey. And that's exactly how my cousin described it. He said, Habibi, it's not the destination. It's more of the journey that you're going on. And that's exactly what it is. I can't expect a solidified outcome to appear from what I just went through or the mission that I'm on, which is knowing myself better. And I can't expect a solidified outcome. But what I can do is constantly try to develop myself throughout this journey. That's personal development. And I'm so blessed to be on this journey and so blessed to have had a moment of self-awareness to where I can, really understand myself better, because it wasn't always this way. I never was, throughout my years of growing up, I was never self-aware. I was never conscious of what was actually going on around us. I kind of just stuck to myself, kind of just minding my own business. And I was always in my head. I was always like, I thought the world just revolved around me, which everyone really does. Everyone thinks for themselves. It's whether you do it subconsciously or you do it consciously, you think, what is in it for me? I'm going to tell you a real thing right here. What everyone cares about the most is, how is this important to me? You ask yourself, think about the last 3 decisions that you made in the past, day. In the past 3 decisions you made, how many of those were decided towards what mattered most, what was more important towards you, or what kind of actions did you take today that made you want to feel more important, right? I'll give you an example. I go to the gym, I say like, yeah, I want to get stronger. I want to train for my marathon, but why do I want to train for a marathon? Like, ultimately, the root reason is to feel more important. I know if I can accomplish a marathon, I would feel more important because I know I'm capable of running 26.2 miles. That's something I'm training for right now. But in general, why do you go to school? It's not to, have this requirement and get this degree and get the 9 to 5 job. No, no, no. It's to feel more important. You want the degree so you can get the better job, so you can feel more important compared to your peers, compared to your family, compared to your friends. And again, whether you do it subconsciously or consciously, everything revolves around how this makes you feel, how important this makes you feel. And again, I never used to be this way. I always thought I was never conscious as a kid, bro. Like I never used my conscious mind as a kid. I always thought I feel like life just went by in a flicker, but subconsciously. I didn't really think too much. I was kind of just like, anytime I felt bored, I would just fill my brain with empty substance from video games, from snapping the hose when I had my Snapchat on. Bro, that was stupid shit. From going on Instagram, scrolling from TikTok. I always try to find somewhere where I could fill my brain up with something. I just could not sit with my own thoughts. I wanted to suppress my thoughts because I couldn't deal with myself. And one thing about this journey has really taught me is be open to that. Be open to the thoughts that are in the back of your head that you might have not been accepted of, or not accepted of, but accepting of. Those thoughts that you want to ignore. When's the last time you really sat with yourself? You sat in a dark room with no screens, with no lights, and just thought to yourself. Just let your mind run a little bit. I was always scared of my thoughts because I am an overthinker like crazy, especially in past relationships with girls. I was always an overthinker. That's a pretty common scenario. But I was always an overthinker, and I always tried to fill something up, fill my time up with something that would suppress those thoughts. That's where social media comes into play. That's where fidgeting with, my foot or something, with doing anything that I could do to get my mind off of the thoughts that I have in my head. That's ultimately what this journey of self-development is, self-improvement, personal development is. Being able to really understand your own thought patterns. That's what it is, bro. That's what it is. Kind of just let my mind run wild on this video right here. And as you can hear from I feel like I'm very incompetent right now just because I can't deliver a verbalized thought. I feel tired. I've been eating like shit the whole week. I had a great time with my family. I really enjoyed Canada. I was there for Canada Day. It's a really good time. But like I said at the start of this video, bro, if you stuck around this long, then it means that you didn't really care to be entertained, but more just see it from my perspective. See something different, which I applaud you for, because it means that you actually care. You don't have an ego. So it's something that I always battle with, is that I would never listen to anyone else. And you can learn a lot from everyone else. Everyone. Even the janitor that works in my building, bro. I can learn a lot from him. Like the janitor that I work with, I don't do janitor work, but like in the place that I work at, we have a janitor there, and he's the most spiritual, intelligent guy. He's been like a mentor to me the past couple months. Like, this guy is fucking smart. And crazy thing is that he's an ex-convict. He done a lot of time in jail. And I could sit down and conversate with this man for hours on end, just because he's such a consciously aware man, spiritually intelligent guy. So yeah, bro, be open to new information. I know I'm kind of just going on to riffs here, but be open to new information. Never think that you know everything already. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I made, because the more that I know I know nothing. I'm gonna say that again. The more that I know that I know nothing. And that just ties in with the learning lesson of ego death. You can't go around acting like you know everything. Even though I can be fucking confident and egotistical at times, I gotta bring myself down to reality, because I know there is a higher version of myself, and it just all goes to acting more and more congruent with that higher version of myself. The goal, the journey that I'm on right now, I want to reach self-actualization, which means, it's a concept, means that when you meet, whether you believe in God or not, let's just say like you believe in God, right? When you die, you're met with God, and God shows you this phone screen. He says, Ferris, this is the man that I envisioned for you to be in. God is perfect. God is all knowing. God is most knowledgeable. So this person is your highest potential. He shows you it on this phone screen. And he says, Ferris, this is all the houses that you've had. This is your family. This is all the cars that you've had. This is, the places that you've lived, the things, the people that you've impacted, what kind of imprint you left on this world. He shows you this tablet screen, and a heaven situation would be, you're met with God and you die, and you see this situation, you see this lifestyle, you see this person that you would have become, and he's completely identical to you. A hell situation, you would meet God, and he would show you that tablet, and you are completely opposite to what that man is. So the goal is to act more and more congruent with my desired state. I tell you self-actualization because that is ultimately the purpose of what I'm doing right now, is become my highest self. Whether I don't really know what that means. I don't think any of us know what that means. That might just be me being a ignorant 20-year-old or a uninformed 20-year-old, but I think we're constantly always striving for more and more in this life. That's what humans have evolved to do. Keyword evolve. We always try to do more and more. So the goal for you is to constantly bring yourself to a higher standard, act more and more congruent with that desire. I don't know what that desired state is for you, but your goal is to find that desired state, whether that means you're driving around a Lambo and your cousin is following you around with a Rolls Royce, or you are in Thailand, you're in Africa, leaving an impact on the less fortunate. Whatever that goal is for you, you have to be more and more congruent towards that desired state. Meaning, how does that man who has what you want, how does he start his mornings? How does he end off his days? How does he react in certain situations? Because ultimately, what life is, it's all of these days just compounded together. So ultimately, what your life is your day-to-day basis. How do you live your daily life? That is what life is. Anyways, I feel like I rambled on a little bit too long, but I really just want to get that off my chest and talk a little bit about my experience being a Arabian raised in a American culture. And hopefully you learned something from this video. Hopefully you took something away. If you did, if something I said today resonated with you, I would really appreciate if you join me on this journey and you subscribe to my YouTube channel. And then check out my Instagram as well, because I post my literally daily life from a day-to-day basis on my stories. And shoot me with any questions, any DMs. I respond to all my DMs personally on my Instagram. Other than that, I will see y'all boys later. Peace.